Welcome back, focused learners, to another explainer. Today, we're diving into a philosophy that literally flips our exhausting modern obsession with the hustle and grind completely on its head. We're going to explore the mind of the ancient Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi and his incredibly radical idea of finding absolute freedom. And how do we find it? Well, by simply stopping the fight against our own nature. Get ready, because this is absolutely going to change how you look at your daily struggles.
Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to imagine a cook working for a Chinese prince. The prince is watching him work one day, and he is just in a state of complete and utter astonishment. Why? Because the cook is moving through the carcass of an ox like he's dancing. Every single cut is perfect. Every movement is completely effortless. His knife never strikes a bone. He never forces the blade. He just doesn't struggle. The prince is absolutely baffled by this and asks, "How on earth do you do this?"
And the cook, he just puts down his knife and delivers this line that has echoed for 2,000 years. He says, "I find the spaces that are already there. I do not force, I flow." He tells the prince that he works with his mind, not just his eyes. He's just following the natural structure of things. And, this beautifully introduces the core theme of our explainer today, the immense, life-changing power of effortless action.
Now, the man who told this mesmerizing story was Zhuangzi. He was a philosopher living in ancient China around the 4th century BC. But his writings, they were not your typical dry academic philosophy. No way. He wrote about a giant bird flying 90,000 li on a single breath. He wrote about a man who dreamed he was a butterfly and then woke up wondering if he was actually a butterfly dreaming he was a man. He wrote about literal conversations between rivers and the sea. He had this joyful, chaotic, almost magical realism vibe to his imagination, and he used these wild concepts to point us toward a very real, grounded truth.
Which brings us to our first major concept, Section 1, the concept of Ziran, or naturalness. This is the core philosophical principle that anchors all of his impossible stories.
So, the crucial point is really understanding Ziran. It translates roughly to naturalness, spontaneity, or self-so-ness. Basically, it's the quality of a thing simply being exactly what it is, without effort and without performance. Think about it. A tree doesn't try to be a tree, right? A river doesn't struggle or stress out about flowing downhill. The seasons don't strain to arrive on time. They just effortlessly embody their natural state. They just are.
But there's a really stark contrast here between nature and humanity. Nature simply is what it is. But us, humanity, we perform, we strain. We're constantly comparing ourselves to others, always trying to be someone different, someone quote-unquote better. Zhuangzi believed that humans, almost entirely alone among everything in nature, have just completely forgotten how to be. In our modern obsession with constant productivity and optimization, we kind of lose contact with our true selves as we actually are right now.
To show us the immense danger of all this striving, we have Section 2, the death of Hunbun, the danger of striving. This is a beautifully bizarre parable that serves as a direct, anti-self-help warning about the dangers of trying to improve things. So, here is the story. Step 1. Hunbun was the spirit of primordial chaos. Totally formless, no eyes, ears, or mouth, but he was deeply, genuinely, effortlessly joyful. Then, 2 well-meaning spirits decide they're going to help him. Step 2. They spend 7 days carefully carving the 7 human openings into him: eyes, ears, nostrils, a mouth. They're trying to give him structure, to fix him. Step 3. On the 7th day, the carving is complete and tragically, Hunbun dies.
The profound lesson here is that sometimes the categorizing, the defining, the improving, and the structuring actually kills the very thing you were trying to help. Listen, for anyone out there feeling completely burnt out by constantly trying to fix or optimize yourself, Zhuangzi is reminding us of something incredibly important. Sometimes the wild and undefinable is where life actually lives. You don't always need to be fixed.
Let's shift gears to a new narrative arc. Section 3. The useless tree, the power of uselessness. This comes from the loving but constant argument Zhuangzi had with his best friend. And this brilliantly illustrates the clash of 2 entirely different worldviews. On one side, you have his friend, Huizi the logician. He believes in extreme precision, strict definitions, and exact usefulness. To him, everything absolutely must have a clear purpose. On the other side, we have Zhuangzi the radical. He believes in something completely counterintuitive, the immense usefulness of uselessness. To prove his point, Zhuangzi tells the story of this enormous, ancient, magnificent tree that has survived for generations. And why did it survive? Because its soft, gnarled wood is completely useless for timber. Farmers just walked right past it for decades without ever cutting it down. In a dream, the tree reveals it spent its entire life cultivating its own uselessness. It's such a profound reminder for us today. Not everything has to serve a productive, optimized purpose to flourish. Sometimes, the life that truly flourishes is the one that just stopped trying to justify its existence to everyone else.
Let's slow the pacing down a bit as we move into Section 4, Singing at a Funeral, Accepting the Journey. Because it's easy to talk about flowing with nature when things are great, right? But what happens when we face the heavy human experience of death and grief? This is the ultimate test of this philosophy.
When Zhuangzi's wife died, his friend Huizi came over to offer condolences, but he found Zhuangzi sitting on the ground singing. Huizi was totally horrified, but Zhuangzi explained his grief through this profound timeline. He realized his wife's existence started as an undifferentiated mass. Then it changed, and there was spirit. It changed again, and there was a body. Then came life, and now, well, she has simply changed again, returning to the place she came from. By visualizing this, Zhuangzi transformed a terrible tragedy into a natural, flowing cycle. He didn't stop weeping because he didn't care. He stopped because he deeply understood the natural return.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, Finding Your Flow, Peace with Change. I really want to connect these ancient teachings directly back to you. Zhuangzi isn't telling us to ignore pain. Not at all. Grief and loss are very real. But he is asking us to understand that every form is temporary, and to make peace with constant change.
By modern standards of success, Zhuangzi's legacy achieved almost nothing. He never built an empire. He never successfully advised a king. He didn't even establish a formal school. He just lived simply, wrote wildly, and laughed often. And yet, his beautifully unoptimized teachings have survived for 2,000 years precisely because they refuse to be pinned down, just like life itself.
So I want to leave you with this final, liberating reflection. Where are you forcing instead of flowing? Where are you fighting your own nature in your daily life? Where has the effort become so constant that you've just forgotten how to simply move with things rather than against them? Look, you don't have to solve it today. Just notice it. Because that simple, honest act of noticing is exactly where Zhuangzi always began, and it is exactly where true freedom has always waited. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.